Alright, today I'm going to teach you guys how to make a popular PvP mission I used to run with my Arma 3 group. It's a 3 objective PvP mission in a small area. I'm going to be using this template on Malden, but it can be adjusted and applied to any map or scenario that you want. The major features are going to be that it is snowing, which adds a nice little effect for PvP. If you do intend on adapting this to your own missions, just be aware that the AI can see right through this snow. So we get prepped, nice fade in, a little UI, randomized spawn point for your team, and snow. Now this snow can change drastically based on randomized variables, from everything from a light little dribble of snow that you're seeing right now to a complete whiteout, which we'll be seeing later. So first I'll go over how the mission works, or what the rules to win are. Independent spawns here inside this church. If blue 4 is here, if they capture the church and there's no independent present, blue 4 wins. If independent kills all blue 4, then independent wins. Blue 4 also wins if they kill all independent, whether or not they're in the church or not. On top of that, the randomized spawn position prevents independent from knowing exactly which direction blue 4 is going to be coming from. So they have a chance of spawning somewhere down here, or here, one up here, there's a couple here, and then there, and one over here, which is randomized. I don't know which one will be. Now we'll get back to the snow. So you're going to be fighting a blizzard that looks something like this, which makes it a little difficult to see. As you can tell, visibility is pretty piss poor. This also supports join in progress. So we will get right on to how to make this. So first thing you're going to do is open up, I'm going to go over the in editor section first, and then we'll do the init files. This does require a bit of back-end scripting to work. So the first thing to note is this trigger here is the church mark, which is the trigger that everybody's going to be inside, which is the main driver for whether or not the mission is over. This is actually 2 triggers laid on top of each other, so be aware of that. It's not just one trigger. We have a OR gate logic here and 3 cascading triggers, which I'll get to in a moment. We also support 2 spectators. Then there's the independent AO and the blue 4 AO. Just this big circle here. Each of these markers, which is labeled NATO _S _ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, are the randomized spawn points. Okay. So you can do this for anything you want, but I'm doing it for this church on Malden. Your first thing you're going to do, I'm going to just dissect this a bit. So this green church mark rectangle indicates on the map where the zone is, so players know not to leave it. We're going to have 2 triggers. First is going to be called Objective B, and the second called Objective C. I layer these triggers right on top of each other. Like literally, I make sure that the position is exactly the same, so there's no offset, which can cause issues. The first one is going to be a blue 4 present, repeatable, server only. And then when it activates, it fires just a hint saying the United States forces are capturing the church, which by itself doesn't really do anything. Type is none, that's important. The second one, trigger C, is independent not present. So this will fire when independent is not here. I then have this OR logic trigger, which has no area, called objective logic, which says trigger activated objective C and trigger activated objective B. So this trigger fires when both of these are true at the same time. I also have them on a timeout, so they have to be triggered for 15 seconds to go out. So if you accidentally walk out, you can still walk back in without any penalty. So both of these are true. This triggers. Easy enough. Then we have the Cascading End Triggers. These are the important triggers that actually end the mission. endings 1, 2, and 3, named Cascade End 1, Cascade End 2, Cascade End 3. So the first one, we're going to have to edit the ending parameters, but we'll do that in a minute. So Cascade End 1, the condition for this trigger is trigger activated, trigger AO1. No, we haven't got to that. We'll get back to that in a minute. Yeah, okay, we'll do this one first. Cascade End 2, trigger activated objective logic, and end number 2. So this fires when this one fires. The reason I don't have these set into the same one is so that there can be a timeout variable for 10 seconds. And once that fires, it allows a countdown 30 seconds, which is a cooldown time after the objective has been completed. And this fires ending number 2. We have, we're almost done with triggers. We have trigger AO underscore I for independent and trigger underscore AO or AO underscore B for blue 4. The independent trigger is independent not present fires. Oh, that should be server only. And it says on activation, hint all rebels are either dead or fleeing. Let's change that to fleeing. US forces win. So if there are no independent in this area, this trigger fires. And if there, then we have the blue 4 AO, which if there's same thing, so for blue 4, all US attacks have been eliminated. So if there's no blue 4 in this entire circle, but blue 4 will be spawning in this circle. If there's no blue 4 in here, so if they've killed them all, independent have killed them all, or they've died somehow, that trigger fires, which are linked to Cascade End 1 and 3. So Cascade End 1 does ending 1, server only, and it is activated when trigger AO I is fired. Again, you don't need these cascading triggers. It just is to make things a little bit prettier for the player. You can totally have this logic on the trigger AOI. And then you have Cascade End 3, which is the same thing for trigger AOB. So when either team, basically these are saying when either team has no players in the zone, end the mission after 30 seconds. And then the second one is if blue 4 is inside the circle and independent is not inside this circle, regardless of whether or not there's anything else happening, blue 4 wins. So let's put that back on top. Okay, so obviously there's a bit more going on here than just what's happening in the editor. And we still have to actually go over. So we've gone over the spawn points. Ignore these Zeus logic. This is just for debug testing, and I can delete these just so I can make sure things are happening. The only thing you'll need to do in editor is set up your independent spawn points. I'm currently using just 2 dummy soldiers in Indep to make sure that the trigger doesn't fire, but you would normally place your independent players here, and they would spawn here with whatever weapons that you want them to have, try and make it balanced. And they can run around. As long as one player stays in here, that trigger won't fire. As for blue 4, I have them spawning up here, although it doesn't matter because they'll be teleported to the spawn points that I've predetermined at the beginning of the match randomly. So, now that we've done the editor layout, let's do the... Oh, we also have 2 spectators here and comments. Now that we've done the editor layout, we need to do the code, which is here. Oh, so the easy way to get to this folder, which is the source folder, so you go to File, and you go say Open Scenario Folder, and you'll be presented with this nice folder layout. At the beginning, when you get it, you'll only have the mission file. The other files here can be found in the description. I'll have a link there. The important things are you have to make sure that they look like text files, but they're actually SQM and Sqf files. And then the BDG pack, which is just my personal one, but we'll go through each of these files, starting with init. So the init file, the first thing we do is we seed the random spawn point. So we create a variable called spawn point. This is a declaration. You don't need an int or any other prefix. We say floor random 6, random function between 0 and 6, or 1 and 6, I can't remember. And then we do floors to drop any fraction that might be on the end, so we don't end up getting something like that. So it's just a nice clean number. And forgot to remove that. Okay, so then we are going to black out the title screen while everything preps. So we're going to say title text format, your team is getting prepared, which is that black screen we saw. We can see it again here. This black screen, you see your team is getting prepared before it actually spawns in. This gives everybody time to load in and all the snow to spawn in properly and settle, so you're not seeing weather changing super quickly at the beginning of the match because it's customized weather. Blackout is the effect type, 0.01, I don't even know what the fuck that does, but no matter. Then we're going to execute call a Init Sqf file from my BDG pack. BDG pack is Black Dragon Games pack, which is this folder. So it says execute VM, so call file Init Sqf. So we're just gonna follow this as it goes. So the Init Sqf inside my BDG pack calls another two files, the welcome and the info in the order, which will follow. So this is how you would just nest folders and files in general to make it a lot easier to read. I could have all this code right in the beginning, but for reusability and prettiness sake, I have it separated out. So it was welcome first. So it fires welcome, which puts the text on, which is that text we saw in the very beginning that has the nice little pre-UI. I'm not going to get into this. If you are changing this for yourself, only thing you need to know is change these 4 lines here. These 4 text variables are the only things that you need to change. Everything else, you can fiddle around with the colors, like you can change the color value here and the alignment, maybe the font size, what have you. But that's all you really need to worry about. Then it fires the info. I've generalized this for anybody's use. Creates the Black Dragon Games submenu on the map. So you can say staff, mission rules, etc. That is done here. So we say general text is equal to whatever the heck text we want. This is formatted text, by the way, so you need to do line breaks, what have you. And then the quote, close, that's our general text parameter. I have this all lined out just to make it easier to read. And we have rules text, we say font size is equal to 40, and we change the font or face to purest light, game mode rules, and then end the font tag. That is the mission rules, makes a really big font. You can find all this stuff on the wiki, but just make it a little easier. And then I have staff text, another purest light change, blah, 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 if you need to add me on Steam. Has my Steam link there. And that adds the Steam link, staff, what have you. Now, this by itself doesn't do anything. This just sets the parameters. Once the formatting is done, we say create diary subject, which is the root object here, and we pass it an identifier and an ID. You don't need to worry about the differences between these two. One of them is the literal string, and one of them is the backend ID. For almost all cases, you're just going to have these set to the same. Then we say player create diary record. We give it the key, not the literal name, but in this case it's the same, which tells the mission which header it's going to be under. And then we say this is the name and this is the key. Again, so we can have sub-objects all the way down. So we have the general information, and then we pass the general text that we defined earlier, which populates it with general text, which is why it says goes in the order that it does. It adds these top to bottom, or sorry, bottom to top, so general text is the bottom, rules text in the middle, and then staff text is the third one, so it pushed them on top of the stack. Now that we've got that pretty formatting out of the way, and I apologize if I'm going quickly, but I don't want to waste space on my computer, and you can pause and go back to reread or re-listen to whatever you think I'm saying. So I also have in here a BDG logo, which is the logo I start. That is, the reason I put this in a folder here, BDG pack, is so in every single mission I make, I can just copy paste this in. I don't need to worry about anything else. Apologize for that plane in the background. Other thing here is MKY, which is Monkey's snow script. Don't really change anything in this unless you really know what you're doing, but I'll go over what's happening anyway. Each player, a particle emitter is created and attached. Oh, there's a blizzard. This is what the blizzards and whiteouts look like, so you can get an idea. We'll walk around a little bit in this, and then we'll get back to the programming. Give you a nice break. So you can see, in a real world, this would, like an actual PvP match, this would be insane to look through, and that's what makes this a lot of fun. You can have people right next to you, and you wouldn't even know. Guy prone in the grass 10 feet away, you wouldn't see him. The reason this works as it is I have Zeus open, is it creates a snowbox around your player. This is what it looks like to the rest of the world. Now, don't worry, each snow is local to your machine, so if I had another player over here, there wouldn't be another box of snow here. You would only be seeing your character's snow, and that applies once you're dead. So once you're in Spectator, you can zip around and you'd see your dead body with the snow here, which actually makes some really great highlights. So let's say there's two players here standing right next to each other. They see snow on their screen, but you don't see the snow, you just see them fighting each other and staring right at each other and not seeing each other. It makes for excellent highlights. Anyway, back to what we were going after. Okay. So, yes, like I said, don't mess with this very much, but I'll explain how it works just in a very, very high level. So when the player unit spawns in, it creates a particle emitter, and attaches it to your feet. Then it creates 5 boxes, or 5 planes around your character, one on the left, one on the right, one in the front, one behind you, and one on top of you. And those emitters are, imagine just like a line, so it's like a ray almost. And they constantly emit snow, and they move, since they're attached to the feet of your character, as if you move forward, the box moves forward. Now, I will say with one thing, that there is a bug with this script. Not a bug, but more of an exploit, is that since the snow blows with the wind, this script takes the wind into effect. If you run if you're running against the snow, so if the snow is at your back and you're looking, so let's say the snow is blowing this way and you're looking this way, you will not see very much snow, while the person who's here has the snow blowing the same direction will see all the snow blowing into their face, and you'll be able to see them, but they will not be able to see you, which in PvP can be kind of frustrating. If somebody could pick through the code and figure out how to fix that, I would love to hear from you, because I have no idea how it works. Anyway, back to where we were. So it creates the emitter, and every 30 to 120 seconds it changes the snow intensity. But we're not going to worry about that. Well, let's move on to the spawn movement. So we had did that. Okay, so we called the init pack. We removed the spectator free camming. This is kind of depreciated because the spectator already exists. We disable the environment because we don't want it to start raining, or the fog, the white fog that's created by the snow script, to be removed dynamically. So we turn that to false. We have join in progress handling. This is copied directly from the snow script, so I have not edited any of this. The only thing you should be editing is this stuff here, these 3 values, which is the fog starting strength, the fog decay strength, and the fog base altitude. So these are the three things you want to play with. You can also play with these. There's documentation in Monkey's Snow script, but I'm not going to get into that. And that's pretty much everything for the init. So now we need to handle these spawns. So we handled this. We created the spawn point first thing in the init. Oh shit, that's not that way. We handled the spawn point random number. So this is a spawn point is a random number between 0 or 1 and 6, I believe. All right, so we also have our init player local, which is automatically called after the init. And since init declared the spawn point number, we can use that spawn point in init player local. So first we're going to wait until the player is not null and time is greater than 1, so we don't do anything funky before the player object exists. We are going to show subtitles to false because we don't want those annoying subtitles popping up. And then we're going to do some logic, and this is where I'll start explaining in more detail again. So we know that independent's going to be spawning here every time. We don't want them to know which direction Blue 4 is coming from. Blue 4 can obviously move around any which way they want, but we don't want them knowing, like, we don't want them spawning here every time and having to attack this way. Otherwise, independent will just set up their defense on this side of town with one guy in here, and they'll know which way they're coming from every time. So we have to randomize the spawn point by doing this. So this is only executing on the local machines, so each connected player when they join, when they spawn into the match. So you say, we already know that the player exists because we did that, so we say if side space player, so if the team of the player object is west or NATO, then we execute this logic, which is basically a glorified case. I could have written this as a case block, but I was lazy and I didn't want to look up the syntax. So we say if spawn point is equal to 1, we set player object, set position, get marker position, NATO underscore S underscore 1. That's a bit of a mouthful. So if the spawn point is equal to 1, we move the player, it's right here, or whoever the player you happen to be playing as, to the marker, the location of the marker, NATO S1. NATO S1. If I could move this here and they would spawn here. This also makes for really easy editing if you want to adapt this to a different zone. Just move these markers and that's where the spawn point will be. We also do that for if spawn point is equal to 2, we move it 2. 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. If you want to have more than 6 spawn points, just copy this, say NATO S7, make sure that the name of the marker is right, and you're on your way. When you're placing these markers, if you're trying to make this, like mirror this on your own computer rather than just copying the mission file, make sure that this is an empty marker so it doesn't show up on the map. So that would be really awkward if your other team knew exactly where all the spawn points were. Okay. That was a lot of talking. We're almost finished. So early in the video we had the triggers say end 1, end 2, and end 3, and we never really got around to that. That is the end mission class that fires the ending of the mission. So in here, in our root directory again, we have the description file. This is an Arma 3 description file, and there's a plane again. It's a .ext file. If you don't know how to create Sqf files, I'll just do a quick tutorial on that. I think I have another video that does it. The easiest way to do it was just copy one of these files and then just change the name and the contents, because it'll copy the file type as well. But if you don't, just open Notepad, save it to this directory, but save it as a .sqf file. So let's just do that real quick. Text document test. So we're opening Notepad, test. There we go. It's an Sqf file. We're gonna go save as, not save. Change save type to all types. This is just .sqf. Done. It is now an Sqf file, and you can delete the original. And then if you want more, you can just copy paste for extra Sqf files. You don't have to do that process again. Okay, so we got our description file. This is an important one. Don't worry that I'm using Arma edit. This is totally possible in a regular notepad file. A lot of this stuff can also be handled with the in-game editor. If we just go to settings, general, like the title and the author, the picture, the DLC requirements, yada, yada, yada. All this can be handled here, but I'm old-fashioned in that regard, so I use a Sqf file, and it does a few other things that you can't do in the editor. So we'll just go name by name. On load name. Oh, by the way, these descriptions override anything in the editor. So if you have something in the editor and then you put the same parameter here, this one will override the in-editor version. So on load name is the loading name Snowy Shootout. So when I press play, Snowy Shootout right there. Easy peasy. The on mission load is the description, American Force Strip Dislodgeable, blah, 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 blah. Author, Black Dragon Games, dev, Dax. Dev does not show up anywhere. This is just an internal note, at least not that I've found. And we have overview picture is the picture that shows up on the loading screen. We do bdg pack / bdg logo.jpg, which is this picture here that we looked at earlier. Now we get into the interesting stuff. Disable channels 0, 1. This is an array function. Sorry, it's a Bohemian Interactive defined preset. You pass an array of integers. These integers represent channel numbers. These two channel numbers represent 0, which is global, and 1, which is side, which, as you can guess, disables the channels. So there will be nobody can use global channel and nobody can use side chat, which is great in this kind of a PvP mission where you want squad work. Not being able to use those channels is important. I can use it right now on this because I'm logged as an admin, but in an actual mission it would not work. Disabled AI equals 1. That just disables AI slotting. Saving equals 0. Prevents saving because we're playing a multiplayer PvP match. We don't want multiplayer saving. Respawn equals 4. This is important. Respawn equals 4. This is the respawn spectator type. And then we have to say respawn templates equals spectator. This allows when a player dies that they don't see a game over screen and stare at that the rest of the match. I think I actually forgot to set one parameter. Multiplayer. Yeah, I forgot to set this game type stuff, which actually is switch to spectator. There we go. We should have it this way as well. Not that it matters because it's going to be overridden, but we should be doing 2 and 30. The summary I didn't do in the parameters, blah, 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 blah. You can also add the revive mode here. I've left it off. So back to the description. Params is a keyword class that is used for parameters. So you see I have view distance in meters, 3000, and I can double click on it and change the options for 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, or 3000, yeah, so on and so forth. You can add more. And time of day, morning, day, evening, night. Let's go over how to do that. So view distance and class daytime. These are just generic names. They don't need to be named view distance. You can call it anything you want. Set the title to view distance in meters, which is this. This is the title, view distance in meters. And then you have a values array. I have passed integers. When you, like in daytime, you see there's a thing called texts here, and then values. If you omit the text array, it uses the values raw integer, like the raw integer values here. So you don't need to like put an array of strings, say 1, 500, 1,000, blah 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 blah. And then you set the default to 3,000 because that's what mine was when it started. That's just what the that should be your most commonly used option. And then the important line. Set file equals set view distance. This is what happens when this parameter is fired. So when the mission starts, how does setting this view distance, since I could name it dog poop if I wanted to and it wouldn't make any difference, how does it know what to do? So we have our file set view distance.sqf, no root folder rooting, it's just in the root folder of the mission. All right, so we say set view distance.sqf, which opens this file and fires set view distance underscore this select 0. This is the object that we're coming from, which is the view distance parameter. Select 0 is we're selecting the zeroth parameter, or the first parameter, because it array started at 0, and that would be the value that we selected here. I know this is a lot to go over. I'm assuming the people watching this are not completely retarded or have a ambition to learn quickly, because there's a lot to go over for this. So I apologize if my terminology is slightly wonky, but we're almost done. So this underscore is important. The underscore right here is important because that's saying it's the super object selecting the first parameter passed, so you can set whatever values you want. Try and keep this under 3,000 or 5,000. You're never going to really need it with the snow being as invasive as it is. And then we have class daytime, which does, as you can imagine, sets the daytime. So it's title, time of day, texts, morning, evening, night, and then values 6, 12, 18, and 0, with the value of 12 as the default. These numbers actually do matter. So let's say in our mission we have time of day. It says day. It doesn't say the number there anyway, but the value that's actually passed to BIS function param daytime, it's calling a function here, not my custom script. If you wanted to call a custom script, you do it this way. If you want to fire a function that's built into the engine, you do it this way, unless you have a function somewhere else in this file that you do. And then is global. This is fired for every player that comes in. Actually, I should probably have is global on this one as well. Now that I think about it. So 6 in the morning, noon, 1800, and midnight are the values here for night, morning, day, evening, night. Default's 12, which is day, noon. All right, this just gives a little extra spice to your parameters. You can look up the other parameters functions on the wiki, and there's great documentation there. But now on to the important bits. So class CFG music here, I'll just get this out of the way at the bottom. This adds the Blizzard sound effect. CFG music needs to be added to CFG music, which is a protected class. MKY Blizzard, it doesn't really matter what this class is called. There's no track name. All that matters is the sound array is passed to this path, which is MKY sounds Monkey Blizzard, yay. I did the Blizzard one only. I didn't care for the snowfall. You can add another one, MKY snowfall, if you want. Doesn't matter. On to the important bits, the CFG debriefing. Oh, there's also other code you can add here to prevent people from using third person, forcibly preventing third person, even if the server allows for third person, like if you're on recruit game mode. I won't get into that on this one. you'll have to actually contact me if you want that code, because it's pretty hilarious watching people set it to recruit and try and put it into third person. So class CFG debriefing, another protected class name, and 1, 2, and 3 also protected. You can have any number of endings. You can have ending 1 for, who knows, for bubblegum. But the thing is that the editor only has presets for 1 through 6. So you can do other ending types, but it requires a different method for calling them, and that's a huge hassle. You really shouldn't have more than 6 endings anyway for this kind of mission. Okay, so when the Cascade End 1 fires, the first thing that's going to happen is going to fire End 1, which puts up a nice big title screen. USA forces victory for kills, because that's what that trigger was fired when Independent was no longer present. The subtitle, don't need a subtitle. You can add, this is a smaller text that appears underneath the, I'll demo it. It's a smaller text that appears underneath the main text, but I do not use it. I find like it's really not needed. The description is what I mainly use. U.S. forces eliminated all rebels. Hooray. You can have a background picture. You would normally pass in a picture path to a JPEG here, like I have been doing, like the same way you would here. So if you want to put in a background picture, you can, but it can look kind of funky. And then a main picture. So if you want like a small icon or something, you can do that as well. Picture color, yeah. Just leave that as 000. It does need it. Okay, so we go like this. I'm going to kill the dummy units that are preventing the mission from ending. Fire support. So these are the 2 units. These 2 units are the only thing preventing. And they're dead. That was easy. So all rebels have been defeated. U.S. forces win, and it just changed to a freaking whiteout. Holy crap. So then we have a 30-second cooldown where the United States forces can celebrate and regroup and be like, woo, we won! Normally, otherwise, that's why we have the chained triggers. So if we didn't do that, then the mission would immediately end as soon as you kill them, and that is anticlimactic and bad for atmosphere. So we wait 30 seconds. And USA forces victory kills. US forces have been eliminated, and yada 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 yada. And then we do N2 and N3, same concept for ending 2, which is the captures. So USA forces capture, and then N3, which is the blue 4. Rebel forces victory, where all blue 4 has been wiped out of the large circle, the big circle here. Let's see, make sure I did not go over, didn't miss anything here. Yep, I think that's it. Only thing that needs to be done here, I'm not sure if I've gone over this, is yeah, the only thing that needs to be done is the placing of player units inside this circle, and the blue 4 units doesn't matter where, as long as they're inside the circle and the match starts, the only thing that matters. I would recommend this setup for about 20 players. Any more than that, you would want a significantly larger, start getting a bigger AO. This is great for the cut firing range map, but that's the one we originally did on. I did this on Malden. Make sure you delete these 2 Game Master modules before you get started. And if you have any questions regarding how this mission works, or how I made it, or if you want lessons and need help fixing your scripts, what have you, just go ahead and add me on Steam. I don't bite, and I love helping people with this kind of stuff. If you do end up using this script or this mission layout in your own group, please record it and send it to me. I would love to see the highlights. I really love that kind of stuff. So I've removed the Zeus module. I can't go into the third person or the unattached cam, and I'll just walk around for a little bit so you guys can get an idea of what's going on, how the environment looks. So there we have our little on-screen thing. I should probably delay that so it's a little bit longer before it puts on screen, or have it stay on screen a little longer. So the match always starts with light snow so people can get organized. It always starts with a light snow. And then after that is when it starts getting crazy. And I'll just walk around and let you guys see what's going on. Since I have an opportunity, here's that bug I was talking about, where if somebody was looking this way, they would be able to see, oh, that's a pretty light blizzard, but if they're looking this way, they'd be able to see, nah, it's okay visibility, but not great. If I look this way, I can see pretty much everything, because the snow is despawning over there versus spawning over here. There, that's a bit better example. It's more apparent in whiteouts. If anybody can figure out the bug on that, please let me know. And see, I can look over here on the sides. If I look this way, it's pretty hazy, but if I look this way, it's basically clear. You can edit a couple of the variables in the snow script to fix this, because I'm using the unedited version. But anyway, hope you enjoy.